Hey everybody, Luke here with Sky Palm Studios. Today we have Moss Chastain, who is a contracted DP here in the North Central Florida region. Today we have been able to test our new Canon C400 along with the Nisi Athena Prime 25mm that we recently got. We were able to run it on some outside tests using a gimbal as well as the DJI LiDAR Pro unit, and then also on sticks here in our office, setting up a little bit of a lighting interview frame just for some kind of still testing and looking at quality in between different frame rates as well as different crop settings that there are. So come along for this breakdown and kind of some notes that we took while we went through all of the simple testing we did.
Warning, none of this was scientific testing. We just wanted to see how it felt, how the dynamic range will feel in post when we pull it back and put a grade on it, and just to see what the weight feels like on the gimbal and how it works with the Teradek unit, the LiDAR unit, and everything else combined.
First things first, we're going to answer 3 of the comments that were in our unboxing video of the C400. First, David mentioned, he said, can you compare 4K 120 to 4K 60? I know the C80 is not oversampled at 120, but I can't find out on the C400. So the C400 filming in 120, it did oversample the 6K image, 6K sensor into the 4K image. It did not crop in, and so it is the exact same as when filming in the 4K 60. So I hope that helps you out on that. The next comment was based off of comparing this camera to the R1, doing that R1 as a B cam to the C400 as an A cam. Unfortunately, we don't have an R1 that we were able to test, and it is a very new camera, similar to the C400. So if we get our hands on one, that would be super cool to test down the road, but we cannot do that quite yet. Last comment we're gonna go over was based on the autofocus. With a manual lens, the autofocus is not something we're testing, obviously. We were testing mostly with the Cine lens and this Nisi. However, when we did use a little bit of our Canon RF glass in our 24 to 70, it definitely was quicker than, for example, the R5C. Not as much of the focus breathing, and it kind of just stayed on it a lot better than what we have seen previously. All right, well, let's hop into some of the points that we had seen through our actual outside and inside testing. First of all, whenever we went outside with it, we had it set up on the RS4 Pro, the C400 with the Nisi Athena 25mm. We did have a Teradek mounted on it, as well as the Focus Pro unit, and we were pulling focus from the hand unit that comes with the Focus Pro combo, monitoring through the Teradek and having that on the side. So I was operating the gimbal while Moss was pulling focus, and we did a few different tests. So first of all, we were testing what the 4K 60 versus the 4K 120 looked like, and to see if it was oversampling, and just seeing how the quality held up, as well as just fast movement with the gimbal, seeing how smooth it would be. So yeah, what is your first thoughts?
Yeah, so when we take this into post, we're gonna be able to really look at how much dynamic range we get and how far we can kind of pull and push this. But from just filming with it and seeing it on the monitors and then pulling it up and playback, looks really good, really crispy, really, I think the Canon color science, this is definitely one of the better looking ones I've seen. This C-Log 2 is what we were shooting on today, and the internal monitoring it looked pretty good on the small HD, so I don't really have any complaints about that, and I'll let you know when I bring it into Resolve.
Yeah, and you'll be seeing, obviously, over this video that footage, and you can kind of get your own opinion as to what you think it looks like and how it holds up. All right, so starting on the C400 and some thoughts that we have after using it for a little bit and digging into its operating system beyond what we did in our previous video. First thing first, when it comes out of box, the extended NDs is not enabled. So you're only going to be able to get 6 out of the actual 10 that it has the ability to utilize. Additionally, the bottom plate of the Canon C400 is nice because it does have different mounting points. However, one issue that I do see with it is that even with a standard tripod plate, You cannot use 2 mounting points because the actual mount holes are spread out rather than close enough together for that. I'm sure there's going to be Swiss cheese plates or something like that that you can throw onto the bottom to completely solve that. But just when you're thinking about mounting it to a gimbal or even to a tripod, you're going to kind of have to just crank down with 1/4 20 screw or the 5/8. One thing that I did notice after digging into the camera button layouts and everything, I do believe Canon put a lot of time in assessing where buttons should be, how they should be assigned, and especially that out of the box. Now you have full customization. You can change any and every button to do most any feature. However, the stock format is very intuitive and it's very easy to read, especially because the buttons do have the illumination behind them, so they are able to be lit up, but then there's also a button you can just turn the lights off behind them as well. So it's super easy to see, especially when you're operating in a darker setting. We tried to see if we can configure one of the buttons on the monitor to start stop, as we thought it'd be cool when you're mounting the monitor to the side of the gimbal on the actual handles to be able to start and stop the camera from that. We weren't able to do it. Maybe it's something that'll come down the road. Obviously, we are on very early software variations for this camera. But other than that, everything that you're expecting to get is there. It is an amazing camera with a lot of functionality, and I mean, I'm super impressed, I will say.
Yeah, I think we really put it to the test on how modular it was. Throwing a Terra deck on there, throwing a focus unit, throwing a LiDAR on there, an adapter to a PL lens. You're like really kind of fitting this whole thing on this gimbal, and it still needs to be a certain shape and a very modular, controllable kind of unit, and I think it did that really well.
Right. One thing about the camera that is super cool is that it is a box rather than a rectangle. So the weight is very centrally located. So when utilizing it on a gimbal, you're not shifting too much forward or too much back. So for example, when we did the FX6, once you threw that lens on, especially with an adapter for a PL lens, you were going to be having too much weight forward, which meant you have to shift the camera backward. However, when you do that, and the placement of the plate and everything on it, you were then running out of clearance on the gimbal. And we were using an RS3 Pro and an RS4 Pro, and we're running into that issue. We would be getting by with absolutely no clearance, and it worked, it did, but we did have to use on the cold shoe on the bottom of the gimbal a counterweight that we used a Tilta mod for, and it worked. But with the C400 and everything loaded onto it, we did not have to add that extra weight on the bottom. We did end up putting the Terra deck on after the fact, and it still could balance. We could just move the camera up on the arm, so it definitely is very versatile. Something about the form factor and where the weight is placed definitely helps out a lot. So even though it is a bigger camera body, I wouldn't be worried about it on the gimbal. All right, so now that we have the C400 impressions out of the way, let's hop into the Nisi Athena 25mm prime. This is a T1.9, super cool lens. Weight-wise, it is very nice because it is significantly lighter than, say, for example, a DZO Vespid Prime, and it has a very similar look to it. And the DZO is a T2,
yeah,
I believe.
Around a 2, yeah.
Yeah, so
T1, 2.1 or
yeah,
2 or something like that.
Something like that. If you are interested in getting the Nisi Athena 25mm prime or any of their other versions, one thing to consider are the different mounting options. So you have the PL, RF, and E. Now these options do come in different flavors. So the PL version does not have any drop-in filter. It is just the PL mount. The E has drop-in or just the extended flange, and the RF has the drop-in option. So the drop-in filter or just the extended flange is to make up for that distance, and it will ultimately be about the same length of a lens as if you were to get the PL version and throw the Nisi PL to RF or any other PL to RF adapter or E adapter, whatever ecosystem you're working with. I will say that I really have come to like the Nisi PL to RF adapter because weight-wise, it is about half the weight of, for example, the DZO brand PL to RF that was out there, and some other ones, the Metabones and stuff like that. So I will say that for flying this lens, in the PL configuration, it is definitely a very nice setup there. Moss was pulling focus while I was operating the gimbal, so we'll have Moss give us a little bit of a rundown on your first thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's very nice, very fast lens. So we're rocking the 25mm today, which is a little wider field of view, but feels like for the amount of fall off you get, there's a certain amount of micro contrast that you can see all this detail in what you're pulling on, and when you're monitoring on a large screen, which we were during some of the testing, can really feel that good amount of contrast and that amount of clean, but it's not like tack. When there's an amount of micro contrast that separates your subject and your background and the fall off is really nice, then that's where there's like a sweet spot. And I understand why they compare this set of lenses, the Nisis, to the Arri Master Primes, because they do have very similar characteristics of that really clean, nice lens, but also not to the point where it's like a Sigma. I think it's almost a different type of sharp that's like a nice balance between not too sharp, but just enough that it's really comfortable.
All right, so for this part of the testing, we're going to show you all some of the content that we captured while outside running it on the gimbal. We captured in a few different frame rates, as well as a few different speeds of our subject moving. So we'll look into how the characteristics of the lens went with that, as well as just kind of digging into how much we can actually pull the footage apart. So obviously we haven't had a chance to edit it yet sitting here. However, what you will be seeing will kind of be our take on how nice it is to work with, and really what the opportunity is with this footage in the C-Log 2 configuration.
Yeah, we're going to test out what the latitude is in post with pulling up and down, and see how far we can pull back those highlights, because while we were out there, we were making sure that we were using our false color to kind of find where that sky was and really bring it around where you would think it would start to clip, and we'll see if we can bring it back.
Today.
All right, so the next part of this video is going to be breaking down the interior shooting that we did. We put the C400 on sticks, set up a quick scene, and we just wanted to see what the camera and the lens would do and how it would perform in a controlled lighting scenario. So we were able to test out different frame rates, crops, the raw, and really just kind of see the different flavors that this camera has to offer.
Yeah, and really just see what the visual difference is, and then what the difference is in post as well. We want to kind of see what the difference is when you just set up a little simple lighting setup and really feel what the camera is giving you in that situation, because that's what you're going to make all your decisions off of when you're looking at those monitors. You're really feeling, what is this camera giving me right now? And it does feel, in my opinion, a lot better than the previous Canon cameras that I've worked with. think overall, I really like this camera. Its new shape and size and weight really puts it in a place of its own. And being able to have the option to shoot Super 35 and still have 4K and use those Super 35 lenses. There are a lot of zooms that are Super 35, and so that really opens that up to a lot of dock work. And then you have the full frame that can go up to 6K in RAW for more commercial style work. I think gives it a lot of versatility, and it's pretty light and small. So technology is advancing, and this is a good piece of technology.
Absolutely. So obviously this was not any scientific test. However, it was more catered towards kind of our needs and what we look for in a camera and the systems that we utilize. So if you have any additional questions or testing that you would like to see, or just general answers to anything that you might have questions about, we'd be more than happy to answer those in the comments down below. So feel free to put those there, and we look forward to bringing you some more content utilizing both the Nisi 25 Prime as well as the Canon C400, as we have some pretty cool projects coming up that we're going to be able to utilize both on. So thank you so much for watching this video, and we look forward to the next one. You have a blessed day.
Turn off the light. Beep, 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 beep.